Yes, greetings, my brothers and sisters out there. How you doing? Welcome to another edition of the Crispy Imhotep show. We're celebrating Reggae Month. Of course, it's Reggae Month over in Jamaica, but us here, us reggae buffs and us reggae fans are celebrating what is known as Reggae Month, the month of February, where, of course, you've got the birthday of Bob Marley, Dennis Brown, Junior Bowles, El Dunkley, Derek Harriott, Bunny Ruggs, so many. And so I'm doing my bit for Reggae Month this month of February. Today we've got Monday the 21st of February 2022, and we're here to pay homage to, of course, the late and great Crown Prince of Reggae, Dennis Emmanuel Brown. Before I go on and before I forget, please like and share our videos and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Spread the word. We're trying to grow. We're 150 subscribers right now. We're trying to get to 1,000 if we can by the end of this year. And we want to eventually get to, well, the sky's the limit for us, but we want to eventually get to 10,000, and then from 10,000 we could build from there. But we want to get our first 1,000, so we're trying to get to 1,000 by the end of this year. And when we get to 1,000, we're going to give away some prizes, so it'll be worthwhile you subscribing and spread the word and so on. So, brothers and sisters, we're here to talk about the late and great Crown Prince of Reggae, Dennis Emmanuel Brown. Passed away on the 1st of, I think it's the 1st of July 1999, born on the 1st of February 1957. One of the greatest voices of all time, not just in reggae music, but in all genres of music. I don't think you meet a person from Jamaica who loves reggae music who will never say that Dennis Brown isn't their favourite singer. I remember some years ago, this has gone back maybe 20 years ago, I done a survey on the streets because I was doing some write-ups for reggae. This is, about 20 years ago. And I done a survey on the streets, and then I asked many people who their favourite reggae artist was. Then, astonishingly and unanimously, Dennis Brown won it over Bob Marley. We pushed Bob Marley into second place. Dennis Brown won the popularity in terms of who's the greatest voice and the greatest singer they've ever heard, and Dennis Brown won it, hands down. So it goes to show his popularity. I've been to many places where me and people have got into conversations about reggae music, and then I always like to ask them who's their favourite reggae singer. Then the amount of times they say Dennis Brown. People have said to me, oh, Dennis Brown is my biggest inspiration. Dennis Brown is my favourite artist. Some people have actually met him before, so it's almost like a friend as well, because a lot of people have met Dennis Brown because he's really easily accessible to people. So because of this now, he was more like a down-to-earth person. He was really accessible, approachable, and he was almost like your friend. And he was, because he was that infectious smile he always possessed on his face. Whenever you were down, you had people like Dennis Brown around you. He would always lift you up and so on. It all started for Dennis Brown back in 1968. There was a talent competition in Jamaica called Smashville 68. Well, I wouldn't say it was a talent competition. It was like a festival of 1968. It was called Smashville 1968. And Dennis Brown at that time was 10, going 11. And then Miriam Makeba from South Africa. She's known as the Mama Africa. She's like the godmother, godmother of African music, Miriam Makeba. And she was once married to, of course, Totally Carmichael as well. And Dennis Brown, very young Dennis Brown, shared the stage with her all those years back in 1968. He was only 10. And he blew the house down. And ever since then, all eyes were on Dennis Brown around Jamaica. It wouldn't be long before he went into the studios and started recording some sides. Initially, he was supposed to record for Derek Harriott. But Derek Harriott had to go to America. Derek Harriott at the time was a prominent, well, he still is, because he's still alive today, Derek Harriott. He's now in his 80s. But at that time, Derek Harriott was a singer, producer, songwriter, and he would go to and fro America at that time. So he had to go to America on an appointment. And so because of this now, Dennis Brown wasn't able to record for Derek Harriott because he had him around, hanging around with him, trying to show him how to, help him to get into music. And he wanted to record him because he knew that he had a fabulous voice. And so, because of this now, Dennis Brown couldn't wait to be recorded. So, as a result of this, he found his way to Studio One, where most artists find themselves. Studio One was the #1 studio, the #1 label in Jamaica at that time. Of course, run by the great Clement Seymour Dodd, who we did a tribute to the other day as well. And so, Dennis Brown got to record his first sides at Studio One, number 13, Brentford Road, Kingston. And he put out 2 albums, No Man's an Island and If I Follow My Heart. And he also done some singles for Studio One as well. And then when Derek Arrett came back from, this is 1969, 1970, when Derek Arrett came back to Jamaica, and then Dennis Brown actually recorded for Derek Arrett a song called Lips of Wine. But it was also initially supposed to be called Obsession. In actual fact, Dennis Brown actually did a version called Obsession for Derek Garrett of the same song, Lips of Wine. They're identical, it's just a few lyrics around the song which was changed from Lips of Wine to Obsession. So instead of saying Lips of Wine, Lips of Wine, Lips of Wine, he says Obsession, Obsession, Obsession. They're out there. You can go into YouTube and download the two songs, Lips of Wine and Obsession by Dennis Brown. A very young Dennis Brown. At the time he was 12. Yeah, around 12. 12, 13. So it was a teenager and a child star. And the third child star in Jamaica, after initially Daryl Wilson was the first child star, and then the second one was Errol Dunkley. Then after Errol Dunkley came Dennis Brown towards the end of the 60s. And so there you have it. And then not long after that, he was finding his way around many of the Kingston producers, because everyone, all the producers in Jamaica, and especially up in Kingston, wanted some of Dennis Brown's magic, because everybody's hearing about this young kid who could sing and could sing great, had a wonderful voice. It was inspired by the likes of Nat King Cole and Lou Rawls, and in Jamaica, the likes of Alton Ellis and Derek Arrett himself, when Derek Arrett was singing for the Driving Juniors, and many others as well. But those were the main guys who Dennis Brown cites as his biggest influences, you see. And so not long after that, he found his way to 90. Before that, he recorded for Prince Buster and Dickie Wong, who was an obscure Chinese-Jamaican producer. When Dennis Brown met 90 in around 1973, 1974, he had an issue with his lung. Because those who know that Dennis Brown's actually, and he only had one lung, because one of his lungs collapsed. One day, Dennis Brown, because he was smoking from a very early age, Dennis Brown, and then one day he started coughing, and then one day he coughed up some blood, and 90 was there, and then he said, look, Dennis Brown says to 90, look, boss, I'm coughing and I'm spitting up blood. And so 90 rushed him to the hospital, and then he was there for a while, Dennis Brown. And everybody, the whole of Jamaica was praying for Dennis Brown, for this young kid who could sing so many songs and such great voice, and only 12, 13, 14 at the time, and everybody was praying for Dennis Brown to pull through and to recover, because there was even rumours that he could actually die. But thankfully he pulled through, and then that song, Westbound Train, which was recorded for 90 in 1973, was the #1 song for Dennis Brown. And 90 had to go to the hospital to take Dennis Brown out of the hospital to bring him to the studio, even though Dennis Brown was very sick, because he just didn't want to miss this opportunity to record this song with Dennis Brown. And then 90 got him to the studio. They recorded Westbound Train at the tail end of 1973. Then when the recording was done, 90 sneaked Dennis Brown back into the hospital, where he was there for some more days, weeks. And then when Dennis Brown fully recovered, he came back to 90 again, because he was with 90 for maybe 4 years, Dennis Brown, for about 4 years, but before he recorded for 90, as I said, he recorded for Prince Buster, and he recorded for people like Lloyd Matador Daly, who he scored a #1 song in 1972 with Baby Don't Do It. At that time, Dennis Brown was only 15 years of age when Baby Don't Do It became #1 in Jamaica. He also scored another #1 that same year with another producer by the name of Joe Gibbs. And that was the first rendition of his classic Money in My Pocket. He was going to record that song later on down in a decade, say around 1978. And that was the one he brought into the British national charts and became a worldwide smash for Dennis Brown in 1978. The first song which he did, the first rendition of Money in My Pocket, you could hear Big Youth toasting over it with Asoris Te. And then the second one, you had a guy by the name of Prince Muhammad, better known now as George Nooks, who actually sounds like Dennis Brown when he sings, because he said that Dennis Brown was his idol, you see, because they were Joe Gibbs Tudor together. And when George Nooks was a very young singer in the late 70s, DJ, but he became a singer afterwards, then Dennis Brown was there to show him the ropes. And he was also, as I said, there's only 1 year between this 1 year age difference, because Dennis Brown is a year older than George Nooks. George Nooks was born in 1958, whereas Dennis Brown was born in 1957. But he's still his idol. He still looked up to Dennis Brown, you see. And there you have it. And then hits after hits. He went to Joe Gibbs afterwards, after he left 90. That classic Wolf and Leopards album was a seminal album in Jamaica. And for me, Wolves and Leopards is Dennis Brown's best song and my favourite Dennis Brown song of all time. But we've got so many favourites because you can't just choose one song from Dennis Brown. The man's put at least 100 albums. So it's hard to choose one song from so many albums and so many countless singles. But I just love Wolf and Leopard. The way it was done at 90 as well. I think 90 got the best out of Dennis Brown, followed by Joe Gibbs and of course Cox on Dodd. Studio One, but it's hard to choose one great song from Dennis Brown. You've got to choose 100 because he's done so many recordings, you see. And so he was with Joe Gibbs for a few years. Then he went and set up his label, Yvonne Special, named after his wife Yvonne. They met in the 70s, and so he had a label called Yvonne Special, and you know, and then he got into productions in the 80s as well as carry, because Dennis Brown never stopped singing. He just carried on singing and singing and singing and singing. He was so prolific. Nobody's as prolific as Dennis Brown. As I said, over 100 albums and countless singles. You can't count them. You'll be here until Die Kingdom Come if you were to count the amount of songs that the Crown Prince of Reggae, Dennis Emmanuel Brown, did. He got the name, they say that Bob Marley coined him the Crown Prince because at that time Bob Marley was the king of reggae, was known as the king of reggae. So Bob Marley just called him because he's younger than Bob Marley. So Bob Marley just said that he's the Crown Prince, and so the name just kind of caught on. It kind of stuck. So everybody started calling Dennis Brown the Crown Prince of reggae. But in the reggae circles, we all know them as kings of reggae. They're all kings. So Dennis Brown's a king, Greg Rises is a king, Bob Marley's a king, Peter Tosh, Bunny Wailer, Jimmy Cliff, they're all kings. But that's just his name, the Crown Prince of Reggae. And so he's known by that title. Dennis Brown was really adept at singing both in the Lovers Rock style and also in the Roots band style. So if you look at Dennis Brown's back catalogue, there's a high percentage of roots songs that he's done. Also love songs he's done as well. So at the same time, he covered all the bases. And so you can't really go wrong with a guy like that who can sing all types of songs. It's absolutely amazing, you know. Toured the world. I mean, just after that hit, Money in My Pocket became a worldwide hit. It was a top 20 hit in the UK, and it was also a hit in America as well. He toured Canada, Dennis Brown, backed by Lloyd Parks' We the People Band. And that's for those of you who want to see Dennis Brown up close and personal, check out that DVD. It's called Live at the pronunciation gets you, was it's French because it's in Canada, but Dennis Brown Live in Canada, 1979. You can't miss that. You don't want to miss that. And Lloyd Parks with the People Band, they back him so superbly. And Dennis Brown sings some of his new songs of that time, and as well as the classic song Money in My Pocket, the second rendition of that song. Great concert and great DVD. You don't want to miss that. I'll try and leave the link in the description for you to go out there and purchase that DVD. It was done in video form because it's 1979, obviously, but subsequent years later, then of course the technicians and the guys who put videos and data and films together, they managed to get it out on DVD. So now you can get it on DVD, as well as you can just jump onto YouTube and just type it in and it comes up. But if you want to own a personal copy, then you can just go out and get the DVD of Dennis Brown in Canada, all the way back in 1979. A very young Dennis Brown. At the time, he would have been about 21, 22 years of age. And so check that out. I mean, we'll be here sit for the whole day talking about. We'll run out of superlatives we'll run out of superlatives to use to describe Dennis Brown, because you can't really talk about a man of his magnitude in the little time we have here. 15 minutes have been speaking and I haven't even touched the service yet. So it's just fitting that we had such a great man like that around us. A man who always smiled, a man who never let things get him down. I've heard many people say that Dennis Brown never once crossed you. They've never people who know him personally, who've actually worked with him in the studio, and friends of his said that they don't recall Dennis Brown ever getting into arguments with people, and so on. He was easygoing, and he was just a great man to be around. Very inspirational, very driven. You can see that he's very, very driven because of the amount of songs he's put out and the quality. It's not just that he's put out so many songs. There's people could put out a lot of songs, and the quality is somewhat lacking. But with Dennis Brown, the quality is high throughout the whole 30 years of his recording life, because he started recording in 1969, 1970 for Coxsone Dodd at Studio One. In actual fact, the first outing of his was on the Alton Ellis album, Sunday Coming, because Alton Ellis was an idol of Dennis Brown, was an idol of Dennis Brown. And so Dennis Brown could be heard in the background to Alton Ellis' his classic song, Sunday Coming. Oh yeah, Sunday Coming. And you can hear in the background a young boy, his voice soars over the other singers, the other backing singers. That is Dennis Brown. And that's his first outing on Alton Ellis' 1969 album, classic, Sunday Coming, but the album of the same name, done at Studio One. That's 1969. Smashville was the year before, in 68, where he performed on stage, blowing away Miriam Makeba. Miriam Makeba said she never heard anything like it. He blew her away, and the audience at Kingston, when they came to see him. And so he died in 1999, so exactly 30 years after he began recording, he passed away. So 30 years of music, there was not one black spot. Yes, his voice changed because he had an issue, unfortunately, with drugs and so on. So the voice changed a bit in the 80s and the 90s, especially towards the end of the 80s, going into the 90s, the voice changed. But Dennis Brown was still putting out hits upon hits upon hits, and he collaborated with so many artists. Of course, his great friend Gregory Isaacs, Big All Around, Ragamuffin. He recorded with John Holt. One of his other inspirations, Wildfire, he recorded with Maxi Priest. Maxi Priest loved Dennis Brown. I don't think there's a person in reggae music in those days, and even today now, the younger artists who they weren't around to see when he was really in his pomp, but they love him because of maybe what their parents have told them about him, from, of course, delving into the back catalogue of Dennis Brown, hearing these songs on the radio, reading about him, and so on. Because there was a book doing the rounds about just after Dennis Brown died in 1999. It was a book by the late and great Penny Real, and Penny Real talks about Dennis Brown. It's called The Crime Prince. Deep Down with Penny Real, and he talks about Dennis Brown. It's a great book. And for those of you who want to know more about Dennis Brown, I'll urge you to go out there and buy the book. And I'll leave the link in the description for you to go out and buy the book of Dennis Brown. It's been out for a long time because it came out around 1999. So this was the same year the Crime Prince passed away. And so I do believe you can still get those books in great bookshops around the capital and around the world. And if you haven't struggles getting the books, you'll have to probably jump online. I'm not going to promote anybody. I'm not going to promote Amazon or any one of those, but you know what to do. If you can't get the books in the usual record outlets or bookshops, try and go online and see if you can get it online. But that's a great book. And I think he needs another book, because that's one book on Dennis Brown. You need about 3 or 4 books on Dennis Brown. But at least now, what we're seeing now, a lot of the artists are getting their respect dues to them. Before it was just Bob Marley who was having books written about it, but now Dennis Brown, he had a book from that time. Jimmy Cliff's got books about him, Peter Tosh, so it's spreading around. It can't just be only Bob Marley, because it's more than Bob Marley. The music is just beyond Bob Marley. And so we give thanks that Dennis Brown is revered and being talked about. And all I want to see now is a film about Dennis Brown. And I spoke to his daughter, Marla Brown, about this about a year ago, about to try and get Dennis Brown's life captured, in film. And even if they can't take it to the big screen or to the small screen, try and get a play done about him, because he deserves some type of visuality, some type of play, some type of acting, some type of dramatical substances to be spoken about him in that way, because he deserves a film. As I said, if not a film, get a dramatic performance about him, so we can go to the theatres and watch Dennis Brown for play, for example. That would be a great way to pay homage to such a great man. So brothers and sisters, thank you so much. As I said, don't forget to like and subscribe. There's so many things we can talk about Dennis Brown. I mean, I'll give you one story about the fact that Danny had to go into the hospital, to take him out of the hospital to record Westbound Train in 1973 after coughing up blood, and Danny got him into the hospital. There's so many stories, we could talk about it. And I was giving you some other anecdotes about people saying that they never see him get into an argument with anybody, and so on, that he was easygoing. Dennis Brown was one of us. You could go to places you know, in the communities, in the Black Afro-Caribbean communities in and around London, not just London, but other parts of England, other parts like in Jamaica, in America. And Dennis Brown would just be like one of the men, one of the lads, as they say in England. You know, he'd just be like you, like the next door neighbor. But no, but he doesn't. He didn't act like he was very unassuming. He didn't act like a superstar, reggae superstar. He acted like a normal person. You know, like one of your members of your family, or one of your brethren, or one of your friends. You see. So that's why we love Dennis Brown. He was really, he connected with the common man and the common woman. And so many women love him because of the way he sings. So many men love him because he touches a chord of all of us. And so Dennis Brown must be always remembered. And down the line, brothers and sisters, we're going to be doing some more about not just Dennis Brown, but other artists. I get the inspiration to talk about these artists on YouTube, and when I do shows here, and when I go back on the radio, hopefully that'll be very soon. I'll always tell the stories of these guys and give you all anecdotes and stories and let you know about where these guys have come from, the struggle. And Dennis Brown was born into an illustrious musical family because his uncle Basil was a great comedian in Jamaica in the 1940s and 50s. And so Dennis Brown from a very young age was taught musical theory, how to sing. So that's why he's so technically sound with his voice, because, you know, his family members, like I said, he's got his great uncle Basil was an actor in Jamaica, and he also had people in his family who sung. You know, unfortunately, in those days of the 40s and 50s, the Jamaican musical industry wasn't yet set up. So for those guys to get their voices recorded to racks, it was hard. So most of those guys did live singing in the theatre, like the Ward Theatre or the Carrot Theatre in Kingston and so on. And they record mostly as live acts. But in terms of recording material to put to racks for you to go out and purchase on record, it wasn't there, because that was before the industry really began in earnest. The recording industry didn't really begin in earnest until the late 50s, as I've mentioned this many times over the years, when I've done public speaking and I've done speaking on the radio and the TV and on social media, and I've written about it in newspapers and so on. And so, but you know, by the time Dennis Brown was born and he came into it, then the music industry was there in Jamaica. So he had a great platform to sing. You know, unfortunately, his parents and his family members who were into music didn't have that opportunity, because it was a bit before, their time was a bit before that time came for musicians to sing to racks. So one of these days, I'm going to talk about how the whole industry started and what prompted, you know, the Jamaican music industry to get off in earnest, and who were the first singers and the first musicians and the producers. One of these days I'll come on here and I'll speak about these things. But for the time being, we give you Dennis Brown. There's a short and brief piece on Dennis Brown, and I'm sitting there, someone thinking that, what should I say? But I think I would give you that, and then we'll leave it there. And maybe one day we'll do Dennis Brown top 10 or top 15 or top 20 songs. But for now, we keep it short and sweet. I want to say thank you so much. Like I said, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, like our videos, share our videos, leave your comments down below, and click the bell so you know about the notifications when we're about to go and post a video, so you can get it first hand, so you know when we're uploading a video, when we're posting it to YouTube. Clicking the bell, you see the notification right there, so you know what we've posted and uploaded the video to YouTube. Thank you so much for your time, my brothers and sisters, and I'll speak to you soon. Adios, over, arrivederci, hotep, sila.